Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal Raza and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, with over 140 UN member countries or member states recognizing Palestine, while the US and Israel continue to resist or block a two-state solution. Recently, France and Saudi Arabia, in cooperation with the United Nations, hosted an international conference on two-state solution. As a result, France, Finland, Britain, Canada pledging for recognition of a Palestinian statehood. And parts of Europe also started imposing sanctions on Israel. Let me ask, is justice for Palestine finally gaining ground? Or is global silence enabling a humanitarian catastrophe, a genocide and ethnic cleansing, particularly the people and the Palestinians in Gaza? World faces a moral and political crossroads as the crisis deepening in Gaza, while still the global divide over Palestinian statehood is more disturbing. As Gaza suffers the mass displacements, famine and destruction, international bodies, including the United Nations, International Court of Justice, International Criminal Courts, lots of humanitarian organizations and human rights organizations are actually warning of genocide in enclave. Meanwhile, Palestinian Authority urged Hamas to disarm and hand over Gaza's control. That also raises lots of questions. To talk on this very important aspect of the secure situation in Middle East, and more important is the human catastrophe that is going on in Gaza. To discuss this, we have in our studios Dr. Tauqeer Hussain Sargana. He is the Assistant Professor of International Relations at the International Relations Department of International Islamic University, Islamabad. Most welcome to you, sir. Thank you very much for your presence. And with him, Mr. Almas Haider Naqvi. He is the Foreign Affairs expert. Thank you very much, Mr. Almas, for being with us here in the studios. And online joining us, Mr. Hamza Amir Khalil. He is the hybrid warfare expert. Thank you very much, Hamza, for your presence online. My first question to you, Dr. Tauqeer, that France and Saudi Arabia hosted a very important conference at the UN. Pakistan also participated and stressed upon to have a two-state solution, particularly an independent Palestinian state in the Middle East. How do you see their conference and its outcome, and do you think that it's tangible and that must be implemented in the near future? And there are lots of hopes about to have an independent and sovereign Palestinian state in Middle East.
Thank you very much, Faisal, for having me on the very important discourse of security in the Middle East as well as the humanitarian crisis going on. Your question is very pertinent in this domain, and the conference that you're referring has an important and a scope to recognize Palestinian statehood is important, because international diplomacy always paves the way to undermine those atrocities or illegalities conducted by Israel in the mainstream diplomatic positioning of the international relations. The overwhelming majority of the United Nations member states, 143 out of 193 as of 2024, have recognized the state of Palestine, which also fulfills the criteria of Montevideo Convention of 1933, under which an entity must have permanent population, a territory, government and capacity for international relations. Yet we have seen that the United States and Israel, under the guise of peace process, time and again sabotaged every credible step towards Palestinian statehood. This is not just political defiance. It is in fact institutionalized obstructionism, which is again undermining the very credible statehood opportunity for Palestinians. Moreover, the US veto power at the United Nations Security Council has been used over 45 times in favor of or shielding Israel from accountability. Also, undermining international consensus and rendering United Nations resolutions symbolic. So furthermore, the Oslo Accords of 1993 and 1995, once seen as a roadmap to peace, have become a pretext for continued occupation, expansion of illegal settlements, and delaying statehood indefinitely. So in truth, the two-state solution has been held hostage not by the Palestinian rejectionism, but in fact Washington and Tel Aviv duplicity has enabled the international community towards which mostly scholars call of apartheid, genocide, and settlers colonialism.
Right now the situation is that Russia, China, the key European nations, France, Finland, UK, and all others, even Canada, they are supporting recognizing Palestine, and they have their own, or you can say, pledges for the next month. Some say September, some say beyond that, but they have the pledges right now. But the US and Israel, they are boycotting it, they are rejecting it, they are always resisting it. They are actually, Washington and Tel Aviv both have the political defiance when we are talking about, rather than the global consensus. They are not believing it actually. So how United States can be can have some sort of measures to have that Palestinian state intact, or otherwise US is always going to support Israel in its apartheid movement, the genocide, war crimes, and ethnic cleansing, what is going on, and in annexation of Gaza and West Bank, what now the Knesset, the Parliament of Israel, the de facto state, is talking about.
Actually, the conduct of the United States suggests something else. It's not positivity. It's actually allegiance towards Israel. We have seen that many resolutions have been passed, though they are not binding within the domain of United Nations General Assembly. They are more symbolic, and they are recording their protests against illegalities of Israel. But the serious platform is United Nations Security Council, and we have seen that more than 45 times the United States have vetoed all those resolutions which were actually to bring peace and stability and the options and opportunities for the Palestinian statehood. So in overall geopolitical scenario, when we look into the credible posturing and credible steps of the international community, the Washington DC approach towards Israel is more credible as in context to
United States is more unilateral rather than to be
global,
going on with consensus and all that with the world, really.
Your
point well taken, Dr. Almas, with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warning that the two-state solution is farther than ever, and highlighting Israel's destruction of Gaza and creeping annexation of the West Bank. Is there any realistic future left for a sovereign Palestinian state, or has global inaction already sealed its fate?
Thank you very much, Faisal, for inviting me into this program. I am a bit realistic in terms of the international politics. At this point of time, despite the recognition of, as Dr. Saab has mentioned, that 143 countries has recognized Palestinian states, and there are lots of other countries are announcing that they will recognize the Palestinian state. But before the recognition of the two-state solution, at this point of time, first of all, we need the ceasefire.
Definitely.
That's in a still, I'm not foreseeing any quick solution for the ceasefire and the stop of the atrocities inflicted by the Israel's on Palestinians. The second point is the provision of humanitarian aid. These are the two main and immediate and quick, I think, the concerns for the Palestinians right now. The third process will take bit time, and I don't see that. In hypothetically, just imagine that there are two states, Palestine and then Israel. I foresee that it will be a subordinate state of the Israel. Yes, in an international system, it will be a sovereign state, but uh, I don't believe that it enjoys the similar sovereignty just like the Israelis enjoys. So my point is a bit different. Yes, these are the utopian ideas. There are lots of rhetorics are being created, the UN system, UN bodies, and like this. They're doing a lot. But what is the reality? Still, the atrocities are going on the Gaza, and there is no provision for the humanitarian aid. This is the reality of the today.
Your point well taken. Dr. As France pledges to recognize the Palestinian statehood by September, potentially becoming the first G7 nation to do so, and the Saudi Arabia reiterates it will only normalize ties with Israel only after a Palestinian state is established. Do you believe that France will honor its commitment, or will geopolitical pressure from allies like United States derail this historic move?
Faisal, France pledge is diplomatically very significant, but politically fragile. While President Emmanuel Macron...
Actually, I'm asking this question because the Finland is standing behind France, and the Canada got inspiration from France. So if France is going to recognize, it means most of the countries are going to recognize that. But unfortunately, if politically that is dwindling, it means that it's going to be it's not going to be true, really.
Yeah, because Emmanuel Macron has publicly posted that France is going to recognize Palestine and they support Palestinian statehood. But in reality, when we see the French foreign policies oscillated between the Washington's loyalty and a kind of cowardness when it comes to taking strategic decisions, because Washington DC, through NATO and intelligence cooperation and trade ties, is always able to subdue and pressurize the French foreign policy. So which is why France credible posturing vis-a-vis Palestinian statehood is always questionable. And we have seen in history, for example, in 2023, when a resolution of ceasefire came, and France was supporting ceasefire resolutions, but in reality, they abstained. And we have also seen that in 2021, France was against the bombardment of Israel in Gaza, but they were continuously providing weapons to Israel. So
it's unfortunately, these are the dual standards which are still prevailing in the West, really.
Yeah. But if France is able to continue with this diplomatic promise to recognize Palestine statehood, then it will lend much more credibility, diplomatic credibility, and a kind of posture within the region.
But that support must have to be there politically as well.
Of course.
So you're right. Hamza, with Israel's defense ministers openly planning internment camps in the southern Gaza for mass displacement, de facto Prime Minister Netanyahu vowing to finish the job, and former US President Donald Trump proposing Gaza depopulation to create so-called reverie of the Middle East. Are we witnessing the deliberate blueprint of ethnic cleansing in Gaza under the guise of security, in blatant violation of the international humanitarian law?
Faisal, you see, forced permanent displacement and confining an entire population to camps with discussions of future deportation meets the international definition of ethnic cleansing. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Legal experts, human rights groups, and the United Nations have all warned that such plans are not only morally wrong, but they are considered a crime against humanity under international law. And the purpose is simple: to eradicate Palestinians from Gaza and annex it. Just a few days before, Netanyahu warned that he would start annexing Gaza, which he already is doing if Hamas does not surrender. We can now see over and over again that US President is suggesting permanently depopulating Gaza and turning it into a Rivera of Middle East. I still believe that they want to basically convert it into a US naval base. With Palestinians resettled in other countries like Libya or Egypt, and this can cause a regional war. International humanitarian law strictly forbids the forced transfer or deportation of civilians from any area, and any such action is a crime against humanity and even genocide, because I can and everyone can clearly see that the aim over here is to remove Palestinians from their homeland.
Hamza, given the Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa's call for Hamas to disarm and hand over control of Gaza to the Palestinian Authority, what are the political, security and regional implications of such a move, and how likely is Hamas to accept this demand, considering its military strength, ideological stance and control over Gaza since 2007? It's just a simple call, or is there any plan behind it?
Faisal, well, it is not only the Palestinian Prime Minister asking Hamas to disarm, but many brotherly Arab countries and Western countries asked Hamas to do so at the United Nations conference and asked for a two-state solution by handing over the control of Gaza to the Palestinian Authority and asking both Hamas and Israel to leave Gaza. Now, the question here is, even if Hamas surrenders, will Israel allow the Palestinian Authority to rule over Gaza? Will Israel leave Gaza? Will the US back down from its ambition to make it a Rivera of Middle East? And will Hamas surrender? They haven't for the past 2.5 years. Referring to your second part, that if it is a simple plan or there is something greater to it, from Arab point of view, it is just a simple plan because they want to end the conflict. But it will be a loss for Israel. They would not want anyone other than themselves to rule Gaza. But even if they allow the Palestinian Authority to rule Gaza, how much jurisdiction will the Palestinian Authority have? Currently, we can see three plans unfolding, trying to fight their way to victory. Plan of two-state solution, which is being suggested by Palestinian Authority and the Arab countries. Then there is the second plan, a plan of Greater Israel that Israel wants to achieve by fighting with the help of the last innocent American. And finally, a plan that Hamas wants to have an independent Palestine united under one banner, and they want to be the rulers of Jerusalem. But international relations, victory will be for the most powerful, and we all know who are the most powerful countries in this conflict.
Your point well taken. Your point well taken. So, when we are talking about overall aspects of the Palestinians, Almas, as the US special representative, abruptly actually left the ceasefire negotiations, accusing Hamas of insincerity. And Israel continues to reject the truce efforts while systematically destroying Gaza to render it uninhabitable. What exactly are the alternative options that the US State Department is actually talking about, and about the Gaza's future? Do they indicate silent approval of the forced displacement or demographic engineering or complete genocide in Gaza?
There is no alternative. In my understanding, they have the only options. They are considering the total occupation or total annexation of the Gaza. So rest, I think this is the strategy by the Jewish-backed lobby in the United States. They are trying to manipulate any sort of the solution evolving under the UN system, and you know, after the recognition and the voices for rising from the human rights all across the West. So in my understanding, Israel and the United States have the similar, they sync in their positions. And then the position is one, to establish Israeli hegemony in the region and to complete destruction of the Gaza and annexation into the one single state. This is the Israeli and the United States ambitions. But lots of the voices, they are creating a difference in this point of time. So to what extent they can create a difference, it will, the future will decide it. I don't foresee any substantial outcomes in the recent future.
Okay, your point well taken, Dr. Tauqeer. It seems that some kind of, as Almas rightly said, that there is no alternative plan. But alternative plan, when the two-state solution, when we had just suppose it, what the US and Israel want is to have a swift Gaza genocide. What we are getting through their statements, and Israel is open on that. And the Knesset debate, which happened the day before yesterday, was very clear on that aspect. Through continued brutality and unjustified, cruel and inhuman war crimes and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians in Gaza, intend to have Israeli-US captives released and then complete wipeout of the Gaza residents. And unfortunately, such actions actually depict the load of tactics against a sovereign and independent Palestinian state, which is there from the first day. And it is unfortunate, a state which was actually existing in 1947, that is now in question.
Yeah.
And the state which was not there, which is totally illegitimate, illegal, and that is an occupier, supported by West, is dictating. How do you see that?
Faisal, actually you are not exaggerating. You are rightly pointing out the atrocities the international community has been doing in the social, political and diplomatic fronts. What is unfolding in Gaza is not merely Israel's military operation. It is a textbook case of genocide. As rightly pointed out in the 1948 Genocide Convention, Article 2,
yes,
which specifically states that acts committed with intent to destroy as a in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial or religious groups. So if we see Israel's conduct towards Palestine, everything Israel is doing in terms of achieving the dominions of genocide. We have seen from, for example, from indiscriminate bombing of the civilian areas, killing of aid workers, targeting, journalists, targeting hospitals, and, the forced starvation and displacement of more than 2 million Palestinians. What else we can call it? It's a kind of genocide. And moreover, the statements coming from the top officials of Israel, like flattening Gaza, wiping out the entire neighborhood. All these things qualify the intent, the military operation of Israel towards complete genocide of the Palestinians. We have to be, it's another unfortunate aspect of international politics when United States complicity is seen in this overall catastrophe and destruction ongoing in Palestine. United States is not only providing arms to Israel, they're also shielding Israel through their vetoes in the United Nations Security Council. The United States is also dismissing the investigations of the International Criminal Court, International Court of Justice. So all this, pendulum or the dilemma of international community creates a kind of suspicion towards the alternative plan. So the alternative plan not seems creation of two states within the Middle East, rather it is a kind of manifestation towards the complete erasure of the Palestinians from the Middle East. So justice needs to be done. It should not be only placed into discussion, deliberation and dialogues at the forums of international community.
Because it is the question of humanity. It is basically human lives are at stake. 60,000. We can. I'm just saying it.
Yeah.
But when I'm saying it, it's just very horrible to say that 60,000 people actually murdered by an illegitimate state of Israel and occupation forces, and more than 147,000 of the people are severely injured.
Very true.
And most of them don't have their limbs.
And the tragedy is the innocent kids, just like flowers, have been brutally killed by and targeted by,
This is very
assassinated by.
unfortunate, and
by Israel.
still the cautious. I don't know where is the morality, where is
The humanity.
humanity, because there are lots of laws when we are talking about
Yes.
the human
Yes.
rights laws,
Yes.
humanitarian laws.
Exactly.
And unfortunate. This is very
Unfortunate.
unfortunate. Almas, as the Israel's extremist cabinet pushes to annex the entire Gaza Strip, intensifying bombardment on starving, displaced civilians, and with far-right ministers like Smotrich, openly calling for an immediate rebuild of the illegal settlements within Gaza. Does this not confirm Tel Aviv intent? Number one. And how significant is Spain and other countries' strong condemnation of the Israeli Knesset annexation vote of the West Bank is in challenging this aggression? And now Brussels, including the European Union and lots of other countries, including Holland, they all came with some sort of restrictions, embargoes, but not at the arms, just at the trade or something like that. So how do you see this overall aspect of Knesset, the hardcore hardliners within the Israeli cabinet, and what about annexation of Gaza and West Bank, what they are talking about right now?
I think as far as the intentions are concerned, in my understanding, the intentions are increasingly clear. The permanent occupation in the guise of the security. This is the broader strategy, what we can see there. And then the settlements and then rebuilding in Gaza or in the West Bank, we should have to be prepared to consider it as a de facto annexation. So as far as the condemnations are concerned, it's good. It's the verbal sympathies expressed by either Spain and other countries.
Because the people in Palestine needs actions, not the verbal condemnations and all that. These are not going to fulfill.
So the condemnations or the verbal sympathies or expressions are good. At least
these are the cosmetics rather than to be
actions.
Reality.
But in my understanding, without the concrete actions with the penalties, you cannot deter Israeli behavior. So this is the clear. The condemnation statements, resolutions, lots of the resolutions we have in the United UN Security Council, but we cannot change Israeli behavior. So we need some concrete and practical steps to put pressure on Israeli regime with some sort of pain. Otherwise, this is unfortunately we should have to be prepared for the annexation of the Palestinian state.
Very unfortunate, very unfortunate. Hamza, with the integrated food security phase classification, IPC warning on July 29th, 2025 that Gaza is now facing the worst case scenario of famine, where nearly 17% of the children under 5 are acutely malnourished, over 20,000 treated for severe hunger, and more than 500,000 people are actually enduring extreme starvation. How long will the international community ignore the unfolding humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza?
Yeah. As far as ignorance is concerned, I mean, they have been raising their voices for the past 2 years. I'm talking about the international community. But if we want them to actually go and take some physical action to stop this war, that will never happen. Because for that, United Nations was made. And sadly, the biggest funder of United Nations is also busy siding with Israel. Now we do not have any Muslim peacekeeping forces or the Arab peacekeeping forces. And I have told you about the 3 plans. And only if one of them succeeds will this war end. And the things you have highlighted, which are based on facts about the children and malnutrition, it actually suggests that the imminent risk of massive loss of life, God forbid, uh, can take place unless immediate, coordinated, and unimpeded humanitarian relief operations are scaled up. The situation which is currently unfolding, it actually demands an urgent political will and cooperation at the regional and international level to end hostilities and open air corridors and prioritize, civilian survival in Gaza. But unfortunately, every war, and even this war, everywhere is fought by those who are hardcore realists. They only think about themselves and not civilian casualties.
You're right. Hamza, as Israel continues to deny famine in Gaza despite swear starvation there, even the US President Donald Trump has admitted that there is a real starvation and vaguely pledged to establish the food center. We don't know where those food centers would be. While the United Nations confirm that aid remains critically insufficient to the Gaza residents, does this not actually expose Israel's deliberate cruelty and collective punishment of a trapped civilian population under the guise of humanitarian gestures?
Okay, since you mentioned Israel as well, I will tell you the Israeli side of story first. According to them, there is an abundance of supplies available and no famine is coming, there is no starvation. This is the level of ignorance from Israeli side, that even the US president had to come up and speak about the starvation and famine taking place. The Gaza Health Ministry reports hundreds and thousands of deaths from malnutrition and starvation, including large numbers of children. Israel's siege and blockade, these policies, widely documented since 2024, have created famine-like conditions deliberately by restricting food, fuel, water, and essentials into Gaza. And without a doubt, this is a form of collective punishment against Gaza's largely trapped civilian population. So this punishment raises again important questions. Why this punishment? Is it to force Hamas to surrender, or does Israel see everyone in Gaza as a military target? And now coming to the point, looking at the circumstances, it does not look like Israel will forget and forgive Gaza, no matter who rules it. The punishment will keep on coming from time to time, even if people of Gaza get some relief for some time, or the Palestinian Authority manages to rule it, or even if there is a two-state solution. I have told in previous programs multiple times that balance of power, there is no balance of power between the two states. Even if two-state solution comes up, Israel is going to eat Palestine again. Secondly,
unfortunately, still the two-state solution is an illusion. Unfortunately, you are absolutely right that right now the Palestinians require their assistance in humanitarian aid and have peace and stay there. This is the first one, which must have to be required. Almas, with international institutions like International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court, the UN bodies, even the humanitarian organizations, the human rights agencies, and even Israeli rights groups such as Beth Salim and the physicians of the human rights now accusing Israel of committing complete genocide in Gaza, while global hunger monitors warn that the worst case scenario of the famine is actually unfolded. Can the world still afford to turn blind eye to these crimes against humanity? Because this is setting a horrible precedent by the international community right now, and that would be replicated somewhere else in future.
Absolutely not. And in my understanding, we are no longer in a gray zone. Legal and humanitarian red lines have been crossed. So at this point of time, in my understanding, international community must come up with the very clear positions and actions rather than the statements and just the resolutions. I think, as you mentioned, the numbers are horrible in terms of the starvation and hunger and the level of destruction the atrocities and the killings in Gaza. But still, as of now, the one issue I have mentioned, that the ceasefire, it must be reached to the point, and the second, provision of the humanitarian aid. So, you know, the UN Security Council conferences and meetings are going on, but still we not reached to the ceasefire and then the provision of the humanitarian aid. In my understanding, at this point of time, international community must have to reach to the point and develop a collective action to provide at least the humanitarian aid and reach to the ceasefire.
Definitely, your point well taken. Dr. Tauqeer, with the European Union beginning to impose trade tariffs on Israel, Belgium federal prosecutor have referred a war crime and atrocities complaint against the 2 Israeli soldiers to the International Criminal Court, ICC. The Dutch government banning ministers like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, the Israeli cabinet ministers, for inciting violence and advocating ethnic cleansing in Gaza. And countries like Germany and Spain sending aid to Palestinians. Why are the key Western powers still refusing to impose arms embargoes on Israel when such measures are crucial to halt the ongoing genocide in Gaza?
Faisal, the refusal to impose arm embargoes, despite mounting evidence of war crimes conducted by Israel in Gaza, reflects a deep moral and legal hypocrisy within the Western, embedded within the Western foreign policy and their politics. These are the same governments, that impose sweeping sanctions on Russia when Russia, entered in Ukraine. While citing violations of international law, targeting civilians, and sovereignty breaches. Yet when Israel uses US and European Union,
because in Ukraine, their interest actually lies there with Kiev, rather than with Moscow.
So that's
why they are supporting whatever is happening against Ukraine, and they are supporting it, supporting Ukraine and negating Russia over there. Here the interest lies with illegitimate state of Israel rather than with the innocent Palestinians.
Which is why when Israel is using US and European Union supplied weapons to commit atrocities in Gaza, the same European states immediately come forward and say that this is the right of self-defense for Israel, rather than using the same analogy, same pretext they are using against Russia, but they are denying the same pretext of within the domain of legality against Israel. So this is something, a deliberate ignoring the international norms and values, and this double standard is not accidental.
Yes,
this is deliberate. And we have seen, actually this is connected with more of military industrial complex that binds Washington, London, Berlin to Tel Aviv. For example, from 2019 to 2023, only United States has provided more than $17 billion military aid to Israel. And along with that, we have seen if they are going to put embargoes, arms embargo on Israel, it will haunt the very interest of corporate interest, electoral interest and strategic interest of all these Western powers. And they are doing not only on the arms embargo side, they are also doing for the international law.
Yes.
They are also selectively applying international law. For their allies, the international law is different, and for their adversaries, the application of international law is different. And which is why the Westerns are discredited when it comes to their commitments towards ensuring human rights at international level.
But but despite of all hitches and hurdles and difficulties and challenges, we must have to give credit to the innocent Palestinians whose resilience is there, and they are still standing up, and they are fighting against all sorts of cruelties, atrocities, war crimes and genocide, whatever is actually imposed upon them by the illegitimate state of Israel, no doubt about that. So thank you very much, Dr. Tauqeer, for your presence here. Thank you very much, Mr. Almas, for your presence. And I'm really grateful to you despite of busy schedule. Thank you very much, Hamza, for being with us online from Lahore. Thank you very much. So nice. Viewers, as you have just listened, US and lots of other countries, including Israel, they are always opposing the two-state solution. But it is very unfortunate that 145 times United States actually used its veto power to support Israel and against the people of Gaza and Palestine. Majority of the world recognizing the Palestinian statehood. Let's see what happened in September when France, Finland, Britain and Canada and lots of other countries has to fulfill their promises. But it is unfortunate that Gaza people are actually still waiting for having long-lasting ceasefire. The truce and the humanitarian aid must have to be there. The peace and stability in Palestine, in Gaza and West Bank as well. As we have witnessed that more than 60,000 innocent Gazans are actually killed and 147,000 are severely injured, and they don't have any sort of medical supplies, the medical treatment, along with that the medicine, the food, water and shelter that is not available to them. And large scale of the Gaza people are displaced several times, dozens of times, and unfortunately they are waiting for any sort of human angle to their tragedy, but unfortunately that is still not there, as the Israeli atrocities, war crimes, genocide is still going on, and the occupation forces are bombarding innocent civilians there. Also, Israel has the clear intention to annex Gaza and also the West Bank. This is unfortunate that despite of all diplomatic and political efforts, Israel is not going away, because the West is supporting Israel, and particularly there is no arm embargo that must have to be there. The arm embargo must have to be there, because Israel is using those arms, ammunitions to bombard innocent Palestinians and to occupy the land of Palestinians, and it's a huge occupier in that region recently. And the more important thing is that along with arm embargo, there must have to be the stern accountability of the Israeli war crimes which Israel committed. So this must have to be happen, otherwise Middle East conflict will prevail and the world will not see a real-time peace and stability in that particular region. This is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.